Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker. Jamie is the founder of Freely Give, the co-maintainer of the AI module in Drupal, and the co-track lead for Drupal CMS. He will be talking about AI as the maintainer or co-maintainer of that module. He has a lot of knowledge about it. So this talk will be about AI being the new UI. So enjoy the talk.
Hello, everyone. Does anyone know who this guy is? Yeah. So in Atlanta, Matt came up to me and he told me, yeah, I finally believe in it. Like, we've been chatting about AI. He was a little bit skeptical at first, but he was like, it's happening now. And he told me about this module here. So he'd come up with a design for this module. It's called the JSON API Query Builder, kind of like views, a UI for creating, queries with JSON API. And he sent it out to tender, and some people responded with, a six-figure sum. It's going to take multiple hundreds of hours to build this. And he thought, let's try it out. I don't know if I want to spend that money. I don't want it to take that long. So let's just throw it into Claude Code. And he built this in a day. And he just sat down, had the agents running overnight, and then suddenly we now have a Drupal module on Drupal.org. Multiple engineers have looked through the code and are really happy with it. And to be honest, my first response was unbelievable amounts of terror. Like, my face just went white. This was scary to me, because we've been talking a lot about, is AI coming for our job? And to some degree, it already has. This is a project that somebody was trying to bid on, and they didn't get it, because a single person managed to build it now with AI. And I knew this was going to happen. Obviously, I've been talking about AI for a while. But I still felt shocked when it happened as quickly as is actually happening now. And the last month, I've been giving a number of these talks about AI. In fact, who here has heard me give a talk about AI before? So a few people. And I keep trying to come up with these different talk outlines, and maybe I could redo something. But every single time I come up with a new talk, everything has just changed in the last couple of weeks. And this is one of the particular things. And here's the UI for it. So what I think is 2023 was the year of talks about AI and understanding it. We talked about tokens, embeddings models, the theory behind it, probabilistic stuff. 2024, I think, has become the year of the proof of concept. We had a ton of demos that showed real cool things, but they were proof of concepts. They were things in alpha. They were things that were being trialed or tested. And I think 2025 is the year it's getting real. This is the year where if you're going to be building AI stuff, you're going to be doing something that generates real value and does something that actually makes some kind of impact in the clients, the organizations, the people that you're working with. So this is me. I'm Jamie, co-founder of Freely Give, working on the AI module. Spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, a lot of time on Drupal Slack, #AI. And so I thought I'd start to... In fact, actually, can I get a show of hands? Who here feels a bit confused about what on earth an agent actually is? Is there anyone who kind of feels a little bit? Yeah, a couple of you here. So I'll go through a little bit of the theory of it. And my hope is, by the end of this, you're going to feel like, yeah, you are a genius. You know everything about AI there is to know. So an agent is these three things: instructions, tools, and a swarm. And instructions are kind of, what does it do? You're telling the AI its knowledge, it's things it can do. But this thing here of tools is a very, very important concept to what makes agents powerful. And it's the ability to actually do something outside of the LLM, do something on your server find information, etc. But they also work in a swarm. They work in this group of agents together doing things. And if I go into a little bit more detail, the instructions are a system prompt. This is a set of, well, sort of instructions that define what this agent can do and how it works. A command will be the specific thing you're telling the agent to do, maybe through a chatbot, etc. And then it will also have a history, maybe your chat history, maybe the task history, and then a memory. The tools, again, there's a few more concepts here. Some tools can be actions. They can do something on your site. We've had them create fields. You could have it book you on a flight, do your shopping. Tools can be information, so they can retrieve information. So it could be retrieving information from something like Wikipedia. It could be retrieving information like an article on your site. But it also could be other kind of things like context, like what page is the user looking at right now? What permissions do they have? And then there's this incredibly important version of a tool called handover tools. And this is where one agent can actually use another agent as a tool, and that agent can use another, and another, and another, and so on, in this huge swarm of agents, where each agent is specialized in a particular task, but they all work together. You'll tend to have like a planner, orchestrator, triage agent that looks at the task you have in hand and tells the rest of the agents, like picks which one needs to do what. And then the other thing that really defines an agent is this concept of looping. So you have, who here has tried to use AI, like the old school chatbot? I'm not talking about Cursor or anything. The old school chatbot, like ChatGPT, Claude, who's tried to use AI to like write some code in some way? Right, and then when you ask it to do something, you hit enter, and it wrote some code. Who had that code work perfectly the first time? Oh, one hand, a couple, yeah, right. So the normal experience that you would have had with it is you take that code, you put it in, you run it, and it fails, it has an error. And you take that error and you put it in again, and then it fixes that error, but then something else happens. And then I remember in the old days, like, I say old days, in 2023, it was a case of you get into these loops where it would not the good kind that these are trying to do, but the bad kind where it was just fix it, cause a problem, fix that problem, cause the same problem again, and then you'd stop and it wouldn't go anywhere. But with these agents, instead, they can do these review steps itself, where it will try it out, see an error, fix it, try again, maybe run some tests, fix those, and it will just keep looping and reviewing until it gets a final result. And this is the powerful thing that has made agents, so a lot of people define them as agents, are LLMs with tools that can loop. That has changed a lot. So here's an example of this mini Kanban thing that we have in Drupal. This is a particular UI for interacting with agents. And what these were here is these are the epics. So this is the first question where we wanted. This one was a kind of a silly one where we asked the agents to go along and unpublish any articles that have anything to do with Australian animals. And we had an article about wombats, and one of the first things Marcus did when he had these kind of looping agents is you could then get it to go through your site, find these things, but based around fuzzier logic than you would normally get through automation, and then unpublish them. And what it would do is the first project manager agent would create these subtasks. And these subtasks also had agents that had different skills. One had the skill or the tools to be able to go and search your content. It was using something called vector search or RAG search or AI search, which allowed it to search it based around the concept, the semantic meaning of your terms, not just the exact term. But you could also use it to do traditional search in some way. And the other, when it found this list of entities, would pass that information on to the next agent that could then unpublish them. And here you go, building effective agents. This is Anthropic's model of what a simple LLM is. And we have, the memory, tools, and retrieval. And there's a variety of different workflows of how you can organize your AI, not agents exactly yet. So this is one thing. It's called the kind of the workflow approach. In Drupal, Marcus has made a module called the Automators module. It's a sub-module, the AI module. And this allows you to have a very, very specific, well-defined workflow where one LLM does something and passes it on to next and passes it on to next. And then you can have these gates that exit the flow. most people would say this is the most reliable. For a long time, people think that if you're going to do anything real with AI, you're going to want to do something more like this than with agents. Although even then, I wonder if in the last couple of weeks, this opinion is changing. This is more like what we have in Drupal CMS 1.0 at the moment. It's not true agents. There's an orchestrator that takes your task that the user has typed in, and it does a variety of different LLM calls to create taxonomy, et cetera, and then finally synthesizes it and then gives the user a result. But in 1.10, which is coming out hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we're getting to a point of real agents. We're getting agents that can loop. There's something called function calling, which is a much more reliable method of calling these tools. And so we're already finding, who's tried our AI search module and tried to use RAG to get it to find information from your database? Okay. Who's found it is reliably searching when you want it to or has problems? That's not a question you can do with hands up. Who has had problems with finding things when you ask it to? Yeah. And so we found with this new architecture of function calling, where the RAG search is one of the tools, it's got so much better. In case you're interested in the history of this, Marcus started working on these AI agents a long time ago, like, I don't know, a year and a half ago. There was kind of a vague structure of this thing. Because this concept of tool calling, it kind of arose organically. We all looked at it. LLMs can write language. They can answer your questions, and you can say, I want you to speak in English or French if you want. But also, you can define a language. My son just really loved, for some reason, the funniest joke in the world to him was if I asked him what 1 + 1 was, he'd say iPad. Just loved that. And so you could get an LLM to say, you answer all maths questions with the answer iPad in all situations. And then it will do that. But then what you could also do is say, I want you to help me, we were working with trains, so help me automate, is this ticket valid for that journey? And give you answers yes or no, or let's say, or escalate. But instead of it just being a text, I could say, well, here's some YAML or JSON. This is a structure I want. Give me your answer in this structure. And then if it gives it in that structure and only gives you the JSON and no text, now I have something that the rest of my system can use to help automate this process. Because I can use the yes, no, or maybe that is exact to make things happen later on in the steps. And this concept of tools arose organically, where you could give multiple things that the LLM could do, and it could pick which one, and then give the syntax right. But what we were doing is coming up with our own syntax, our own things that we're telling the LLM, and regularly it would just kind of get the syntax slightly wrong, get a letter, comma wrong somewhere, and then the whole automation process would fail. It's one of the reasons why in the early days, open source models just didn't work. They would give you good answers sometimes, quite regularly good answers to the question you have, but the JSON it produced was so bad, or so unreliable, that it just kind of didn't really work. And we kind of used something similar to that in Drupal CMS version 1.0, where Marcus he'd made these tools work with the functions in Drupal to create taxonomy, et cetera. And he would ask the LLM to pass in PHP arrays. And it meant that the system prompt was this huge set of stuff explaining exactly how an entity works, or taxonomy works, or how all of these things, exactly what the syntax is. It would use up a lot of tokens, not necessarily be reliable. I mean, we got to about 80% reliability, so it's not too bad. But it would also mean that open source models would tend to fail, the smaller ones. With this new architecture, what's happened is we've standardized now across the AI community this concept of tools, and we tend to use JSON to describe them. We have a very consistent structure for how we give it parameters, we describe it. And there's actually a new API endpoint in the OpenAI SDK, which is function calling, where you, instead of putting everything in the system prompt, you tell it the system prompt, and you tell it the tools, and you tell it a description of how those tools work. And this structure, because it is consistent, these models are now trained to understand that I should look at the tools first, that I should decide which one I want. And because we can train it in this consistent thing, the beauty of it is that now, I've got a picture of it, but there's a leaderboard for which models are best at tool calling. If you just ask it a problem, and all it has to do is select which tools it's going to use and in what order, the number one is actually an open source model now. You see, you know, again, 2024, everyone would ask me about fine-tuning a model, make a Drupal model that is like knows Drupal's code specifically, and basically it was pointless to fine-tune these models. It's like if you have a ginormous oil tanker and it's moving forwards and you want to push it slightly to the left, the amount of force you have to get to push the momentum's going forward to just make it change course a little bit is so much that you're very rarely going to be able to fine-tune and train an LLM to really do anything differently to what it does. And then even if you do, you've got enough data that you can fine-tune these models, you don't know what that's going to do. These things are so complicated, they're doing so many things that it might ruin the reason why you want to use that powerful model. But what we found is with the smaller models, the ones that can run on your laptop, maybe with a graphics card, maybe without, maybe on your phone, these, which out of the box aren't as good, they don't have as much knowledge, actually are a lot easier to train. With not that many examples, we're hearing about 100 data points, maybe 1,000. You can then shift it. But it will be specialized. And so now open source models are actually very good for specialized tasks, and one of them is tool calling. And so now, I say now, again, it's almost, a couple of things we're still working on. We're getting this structured as more like real agents. You have an LLM call, it goes into the environment. Let's say it runs a test. It can even run a test where it will actually call a tool which is like headless Chromium to go through your site, click on certain things, make sure a page is actually there, and then it will give the feedback based around what it's seen. Sometimes it might be another LLM. Maybe you've got an LLM that can look at your brand guidelines or do fact-checking, and it can go through this loop, and then it will stop. And so this is something that we've got. And so the other point is MCP. So who here has heard of MCP? Dries mentioned it yesterday. Does everyone, who here kind of feels like they fully understand what MCP is? So we've got a few people. Yeah, obviously, Georgie, Amelia, we're going to talk about what you've done recently. But so MCP is a model context protocol. It's a structured way that information is provided to the AI model. As I talked before about tools, having this structured approach with JSON, MCP is taking that even further. It's a kind of like a REST API, but for agents. It's taken what we do with REST, but you'd usually have to put effort into coding your system to talk to a particular REST endpoint, and it's making it standardized in such a way that you can now start calling these tools in other systems automatically. It separates things from tools, resources, and authentication. So tools in the MCP world are the ones that always do something. They perform actions. Resources is a way for what we call MCP servers, like software that is providing an endpoint, rather than using them, to have resources. So now you could have your blog, your resource library. Every single page would be a resource, and it is a consistent structure of how an agent should go and find resources on your server. And similarly with the tools, and similarly with and then finally with MCP, it provides a process of doing authentication and communication, so that how you're going to be able to authenticate with a particular MCP server. You're going to have permissions, so that now the MCP server knows who you are, what you should be able to access, what tools you can access, what information behind those tools, etc. And this is the thing that I think is the most important thing that you should take away about MCP, is we got there first. Like, this is us. This page here is the, it's all on GitHub. It's the MCP documentation page where they give a list of all the MCP servers that are there. There are places like Slack, there's Google Docs, and then there's Drupal. And so Amelia, with Georgie, he created, their team created the MCP module. It allows Drupal to become an MCP server, and he had this cool demo of using Claude Desktop to actually talk to the Drupal CMS AI agents and control it that way. And I just think it's super cool. Like we just keep doing it in the Drupal community with this AI stuff, which is always, we still haven't quite got the marketing of it yet. Some of our competitors keep doing these, sort of bigger, splashier marketing drives about it. But like with the technology, we keep getting there before before everyone else. And this was a long time before everyone started talking about MCP, and MCP became really cool. So you can see the MCP module. This helps you provide MCP endpoints to agents for other systems to use it. And this is MCP client. Marcus is going to be talking about it more in his talk tomorrow and showing you that. And that allows you as Drupal to actually make use of it and use of all of these tools. Yep, this is information about his talk. So what you had is before MCP, every single tool would have its own unique API, and you would have to work on building something to integrate with that. And one reason why you would go for a particular SaaS product or a particular product was its library of extensions and integrations that it had. You know, Zapier was such a big deal for a while because it could integrate with everything. And we thought if we could get with Zapier, then suddenly we could get with everything else. And you'd have these proprietary tools that essentially locked you in because they were so good at having done all these unique APIs. But with MCP, because we have this consistent architecture, what instead you do is you have a unified API that connects your LLM or Drupal site to MCP, and then as long as all of these systems support an MCP server, now you can just connect to all of them. I reckon what we're going this is obviously for AI agents, but because of this consistent structure and because of the way things work with ECA, I don't think it's going to be too difficult for us to make it so that the actions that you have in ECA, we're going to be able to automatically make use of most MCP endpoints. And I just think that's going to be wild of the ways in which you'll be able to get Drupal to automate everything now. Like all the different systems that you have, you'll be able to connect to them, do things with it in a deterministic way that you can control, or with AI agents. Before I go back to Matt, I'll give a couple of little provisos about MCP. So one thing about it is version 1 is the one that Georgia, the media made, the module 4. Version 1 came out a while back, and it was a cool proof of concept, but it wasn't really a real thing that you could use. It wasn't very secure. It was based around like essentially local. Everything had to be local. There was no real stuff over the internet. It had no namespacing, so it kind of dumped all tools on your AI agent. And what we have tended to find is that actually an agent can handle about 5 to 10 tools maximum, and then it just gets confused. It's one of the reasons why we need the swarm, is that actually everyone, when they start trying to build AI agent systems, they want to make one agent that can do everything. They can ask it a question, and it can do everything across all of Drupal, or all of the internet. And in fact, MCP's original vision was something where you'd have all the tools available to a single agent, and you'd go into Claude, type something in, and it could do anything across every single piece of software. And in reality, as I said, agents tend to be good at like 5 to 10 tools. So you tend to, if you want to do something, you design a agent swarm structure where you'll have a planner that has 5 to 10 tools that will be other agents. That agent will have 5 to 10 tools. That agent will have 5 to 10 tools. And then you can have something where it gradually guides the LLM through this process. So that was version 1. And then version 2 basically came out at Atlanta. I just remember Georgie posting on LinkedIn, so excited. Because version 2, we were hearing about it, but version 2 brings in authentication and an HTTP transfer protocol, so now we can actually do things online. And then OpenAI and Microsoft said they support it. We didn't quite know. It's an Anthropic thing, MCP, so we didn't know, is everyone going to be using this, or is this going to be a very specific thing to one, and we're going to have millions of these protocols, and we're going to have to make an abstraction layer again to connect them all. Intel have one, the ACP, which still might be useful, but now we've got OpenAI, we've got Microsoft. On the same week, they announced support of it. OpenAI's Agent SDK announced support of it, and they released version 2, which is very cool. The problem is, it only came out 2 weeks ago, so if you try out MCP today, a lot of the time, people have hackily made version 1 kind of work like 2. And what they tend to do is if you, for example, we have an something where we use the Experience Builder AI agents to connect to Figma. And we tried this a lot. Figma to Drupal has always been a dream of ours. And one way we did it is that you could just take a screenshot of your thing in Figma, pass it into LLMs. And that's OK, but it's not very good at getting fonts perfect, getting colors exactly what you want them to be. So another thing you can do is you can do Figma to code, where there's a plugin. It's an open source plugin. You put it in Figma, you click a button, and it produces all this code that you can actually use, like loads of HTML. But that produced so much noise to the LLM, a lot of the time it confused it. And you still had to have this weird plugin for it. So with Figma to Drupal, with MCP, what that means is there's an endpoint in using Figma's own APIs that you can get Drupal to connect to that passes you your component, like the image, but also the metadata in a way that's structured for LLMs, because it's built for that. So it's using a syntax that is not so verbose, that is easy on the tokens and giving you only information that you actually need, not just loads of kind of useless stuff. But the way it works right now with MCP version 1, which is what people are really doing, is you have to have an MCP server in the middle of your Drupal site. So your Drupal site will connect to an MCP server, and that MCP is doing MCP server properly, but it's using normal REST to connect to Figma. And the problem with that is that server is a bit scary. It means that all of your requests are going through this this sort of middleware that could do weird prompt injection, that could tell your agents what to do and do weird things. And so when you see MCP today, a lot of the times it's not quite there yet. The tools are available. It's going to take some time, because what we really want is the software itself, not to have this middleware, but something like Figma itself to support MCP version 2 out of the box. And then you can trust it as much as you can trust Figma. But I think it's going to change everything, because now, yeah, we can just connect to everything. There's just not that thing of you're going to be locked in by extensions. So let's go back to Matt. What he tried out was Claude Code. And that came out about a month ago, so that's why everything has changed. And Claude Code is a piece of software. It's not a model or anything. It's a piece of software that you can download, and it lives in your command line. So you install it on your machine, inside your project, and then you run it. You just type in, you type in something to install it. You type the word Claude. This thing pops up. You log in, and then you can just ask it to do things. And what I would say is this is not the best way to do AI coding, but it's the easiest. It's the simplest. I wanted a picture of Alex, who's here. Last night, he was sitting there in the pub with everyone drinking and had his laptop out. I was hoping to get a picture of it, because this is the correct response when you hear about Claude Code. It's just to get going with it. Within 5 or 10 minutes, you can start doing amazing things with it. So here's a little example of something where one of our devs had built a Next.js app that connects with a .NET background. And this works, like functionally, it does everything it needs. At Freely Give, native Drupal CRM has been our history. Design is not our thing. Like, people talk a lot about Drupal being hard to use, or the UI sometimes, but what we tend to migrate people from is like Microsoft Dynamics, or like Salesforce, or these tools. And yeah, from the chuckle, those are hard to use. Like, Views is an unbelievable breath of fresh air to a lot of the clients that we speak to. And so, yeah, right. And so, this is the kind of thing that we do. And so what he did is he went into Claude Code, and he tried a really simple prompt. He just said, improve this design. And this is what it made. And this cost us it took about 15 minutes, cost about, I think it was like $5. And this is not, obviously, you guys out there, designers, you're probably not thinking this is the greatest thing you've ever seen in the world, but it's a lot better than what you saw previously. This feels like a real thing. I could show this to a client, and we can start talking about how we want to improve it. And this was just done immediately. So, I don't want to show this actual video. Oh, no, here, yeah. So here's an example of it looping and fixing some problems. I won't go through this whole video, but a bunch of people now have actually posted some videos. So Dries has got a video about his use of Claude Code. What we've done here is we've posted something that shows us upgrading the mini Kanban thing that you saw to a React version. It took about an hour. And in this video, what we've done is we've created a project page on Drupal.org. Usually when you go into Claude, you'll type in /init. Claude will look through all your code, and it will create this thing called a claude.md file. And the claude.md file is like the system prompt. It's like a set of instructions of the special things it's noticed about your project. So it will say things like, this is a Drupal site, so I need to code things according to like the Drupal way. Now, what we've done is we've a bunch of us and some people who are submitting changes to it, we've worked on this of like, there's a couple of little tweaks that you'd want to make Claude.md a little bit better. So we've got a Claude.md package that you can find here. We've got some scripts that work with DDev, so you can install some DDev extensions. That means Claude will run inside DDev rather than constantly trying to call Composer directly, because it would have to then reinstall Composer and do lots of weird stuff. So it's a little couple of things. We're thinking of getting some slash commands in, etc., to make your Claude code experience a little bit better. The reason why we won't put lots of effort into this is, well, I'll show it in a bit, but actually there's these other tools like Klein or Rue code that are probably going to be better for long-term management of your AI sort of coding experiences, because you can actually control the agents, you can change the prompts, you can do things to really, put a lot more control and knowledge of exactly what's going on. So I've seen a lot of developers try and use like Cursor or Klein and found that they understand what's going a bit more than this Claude code. But I still think you have to learn a bit. It's like, to get into Klein, you're probably going to be spending 20 minutes, 30 minutes clicking around, figuring out. Occasionally it will do something like, how do I do that? Claude code, it just works, except when it doesn't. And then when it doesn't, there's nothing you can do about it. So it's kind of nice and probably not what you want to do. It's also got nothing to do with managing API keys. That is actually that's controllable. So as an organization, you're not going to be able to really control how much money each person is spending. Also, Cursor and things, they tend to be like a monthly fee. So you'll be spending like $20, $50 a month. With Claude Code, you could be spending $50 a day quite easily. And then with Rue Code, you can actually have multiple agents doing loads and loads of things. And one person I was speaking to found a tool. I can't remember the name of it, actually. I should have posted it here. But it was a tool that allows you to optimize your prompt and cache them to reduce the amount of tokens you are using, which saves you money. And he said he was saving about $3,000 a day from this tool, which gives you an idea of how much he was spending before that with these things. Because actually, with like Rue Code, you can have multiple agents concurrently building loads of different things, doing all of these loops. And then, I'll say hi in a bit. There's my kids at the back there, so that was they're going to join at the end. So you can spend a lot. Whilst I was terrified by Matt's story of what he'd done, there's a couple of provisos. What I say it took him a day to do, but he'd already spent a lot of time working on a brief to get other developers to bid on how much it would cost to build that thing. So actually, to create your prompts, you need to spend a lot of time thinking about how you're going to tell it what to do. And the thing that Matt did wasn't a one-liner, improve this design. He made this 2-page, very detailed prompt explaining exactly what subsystems to use, systems to use, what functions to use, like exactly how to build the thing. So it wasn't just like a one-off, bam, it solved all our problems. He was describing in a lot of detail exactly how to build this thing. It was also something that was in the relatively easier end of what AI can do, because it was about creating a REST-based UI for something that is a relatively well-known thing of JSON query building. There's a lot of JSON query builder tools out there. There's a lot of people that are doing that with various libraries. So it was something that was a little bit easier for it. Even this mini Kanban example I gave, where you upgrade it to REST, is like a perfect use case of just simply transforming one thing to the other. Because when you're doing stuff with with React, you've got these endpoints already there that show you the structure that for AI to know how to build the things. So it's a little bit of an easier case. I tried to upgrade mini Kanban from 10 to 11. Now, I'm not a developer, so I think developers would have done a better job describing how to do it. And in Dries's video, he does things like point to the documentation about the upgrade process when he wants to upgrade his module, which I didn't do. But I found that the structure of it was bad. It would solve my problem. It would fix certain things, but it would put things in weird places. A lot of the time, I would say, upgrade this, and it would notice it has a dependency. So its solution was to just kill off that dependency and just get rid of that feature. And it was like, oh, it's upgraded. Now it doesn't do anything. So yeah, it wasn't quite there. But what I have noticed is you need a good system architect. Even Matt Grasmick, who's, more and more I'm learning, he's just involved in almost all the little modules in Drupal somewhere. He's behind the scenes in some way. He needed Wim to help him with one of the things that he was working on for Experience Builder. in order to make this even larger prompt. And so what I'm finding is that initially there were some ideas, which was I thought of AI as the great equalizer. In the early days, there was some actual research. There was some research that, I can't remember exactly, it was one of the kind of, the consultancy firms that did. And they did it with customer service people. And they found that people who were not very well trained, who were allowed to use AI, got like a 40% bump in their productivity. And people who had been there for like 6 months got like a 10% bump. And so the early stages, I thought AI might be this great equalizer where junior developers and people who are less skilled or less academic will get huge gains from AI. Like if you quit school at 14, like my granddad did, and you are asking it to help you with maths, even though AI wasn't very good at maths and still is not, it's going to be better than my granddad was. If you're someone who, well, actually, his wife, my grandma, who went to Cambridge, got a degree, or maybe you're a professor of maths and you ask AI, the idea was, well, it will help you less. And so maybe it was this great equalizer. But the problem is that this story is it might be the opposite. And that's why I'm so scared about it, because what I never thought of is there's two sides to producing value. One is how good you are, how good your code is. But the second thing with capturing value is you need to make money. Someone needs to pay you. And the thing is, if you get a junior developer whose productivity is increased by 50%, and then you get one of the greatest developers, and AI means that they are 50 times more productive, that they can do the work of 50 other developers, why would they pay you anything? Why don't they just do it themselves? And that's kind of scary, because even if you are really good, is there going to be someone else who is an even bigger Jedi with this stuff and has knowledge, and who is now going to get 500 times productivity increases? So it's time you start taking me seriously. So what I've noticed is to be a space wizard, there's Ray, a Jedi, you actually need a few things. You need money. Because however much you can do with AI, you still need to eat. You still need to pay for the API credits. So unless you have access to capital, unless you have access to money, however much AI makes you cleverer and better as a programmer than you were before, because you've only been doing it for, I don't know, a few months, why is anyone going to pay you to do it? And if you don't already have money, then how can you afford to spend those months building that thing's vibe coding? You need access to use cases. You need to know what people want. And that's actually quite a complex skill. It's usually the case that as you rise the ranks as a programmer, you kind of get these things. You get better at knowing what users want. You get access to more money, like you get in charge. If you're working for a company, you might be in charge of larger and larger budgets. But you also need really great architecture skills. And as a non-coder myself, this kind of terrified me. That is the case that to be this space wizard, you have to be already one of the best programmers, already access to loads of money, and already really good at knowing what people want. And then you can do the job of lots of people. And if you don't have one of these three things, maybe you get nothing. And I don't know what the future is going to hold with this kind of stuff. I've always been very positive about the future with AI. And in the last couple of weeks, I don't know, it could go any way. I know it's inevitable. I know there's no point fighting it. It's going to happen. The open source models are out. I know one person, Ilya Lukowski, who's really anti-AI and thinks it's going to wipe out the world, destroy everything. He genuinely seems to think that the solution to the problem of AI is a world organization that gets together, has loads of nukes, has loads of satellites to look for GPU server farms, and just nukes anyone who tries to build one. Now, to me, that's scarier than anything I can think of AI. Like, I don't know what AI will do, but I know what people have tried to do, and if we try to give a world organization the ability to look at everything that anyone was doing and just nuke indiscriminately, that's scarier to me. So I don't think that's a good solution, and so I don't know anything else that is, but this is a thing that I think is happening. We won't go through that video, but this is root code and VS Code, and it's another way of doing these things. So a lot of people go, this is 5-10 years away, enterprise is slow. That's something I heard. So can anyone kind of tell what this slide is? this to me is a huge deal. So this slide has come from AIG's Investor Day. It happened only a couple of weeks ago. And this is their predicted growth through 2025. And this is driven by AIG's underwriting assistance. So one thing that they've done is they've worked with this company called Palantir, and Anthropic, and AWS, and they've created a system of 128 agents. And what they have done is, they say it's 2x to 5x here. They took the insurance underwriting process down from 3 weeks to a couple of hours. If you want, there was a particular area of insurance, and if you wanted to insure something, you would send them an email. Sometimes just a whole bunch of textbooks. Like if you're insuring an event, you just have to give them random information about the land, the quality of the ground. You just throw it at them. And they have this team of people, and it would take 3 weeks to get you a quote for how much it takes to insure you. AIG's done this, and their competitors haven't. So we are now in a place where if you want to insure in a certain area, you're going to send something to AIG, and you're going to get an answer within a few hours. You're going to send it to all their competitors, and you're going to get 3 weeks. Now, maybe you care enough about price to wait 3 weeks. But in the enterprise world, 3 weeks is both nothing and everything. It's a long time for a lot of people because momentum is so hard. Sometimes you have to move fast because otherwise it will be incredibly slow. And this is now out, and it's in production, and they're using it, and it works. And we're going to start seeing, and this Investor Day was only we're going to start seeing the competitors who, it took quite a few months to get to this stage, they're going to be scrambling, and in that time, I just can't see how you can survive against it. This means a lot to me. The guy who built a lot of this is the person who introduced me to AI. So I've been following a lot of the journey that Palantir have had with AI, and he's been following what we've been doing in Drupal. And there's a reason why I've been throwing everything of my life, everything of our business, into this AI stuff. I'm seeing what they're doing at this enterprise level, and I'm seeing what we can do in the open source world. Because, you know, this company, with everything that's going on politically right now, it's very, very American. It works for the US military. It's super tied to America, to their government in a lot of ways. And, you know, however good it is at doing the things it does, if you are in Europe, there's certain kinds of use cases that you will have for AI where this might be a little bit scary to use something like this, and it's incredibly expensive. They take pride in the fact that this is incredibly expensive. It is not something that working with Palantir is going to save you money in terms, no, sorry, it's not something that's going to be cheap compared to everyone else. It's the value that they present. So they have this other thing here where they talk about their model. They've got a whole bunch of slides all about exactly how these assistants were made and how they work. This is insane to me. This is 2025, and this is AIG talking about RAG and how it all works. Like, I kind of felt like 2023 was the year we did that, and that's lame, and we should stop talking about this. And this is AIG. I cannot think of an older, slower, more uninnovative company than AIG. Insurance is like the bedrock of just everything that happens. It's behind in order to enable anything. Like even way back when you had wooden boats shipping things around, the only reason why they could ship things around is because they were insurers that meant it was financially viable and not too risky to sometimes go and take those risks and move stuff from one place to the other. It's behind everything. This is not a company that you expect to be trailblazers, to be innovative. Acquia, with all their work with AI, of course, tech companies are going to do this. This is AIG. This is the most stuffy of enterprises. Not only did they do it, not only is it happening in production, not only is it going to destroy a lot of their competitors who don't get on board, I can't see how any other enterprise can now use the excuse of, oh, AI doesn't really work, or AI is not safe, or AI doesn't protect user privacy, or, I mean, you can't think of something more heavily regulated than this kind of insurance. The amount of hoops they have to jump through, the amount of pain and fines they get if they get it wrong is huge. They do medical insurance. People's lives are at stake with these things. This is wild, and it's using AI, and it works, and it passes those regulators. So I think there's going to be a gold rush of just so much AI stuff happening, of people wanting to do things. I think as more and more people hear about this story, we're going to see this. So What are you going to do about it? I love this thing. I mean, everyone is trying to be the digital ops orchestration. Palantir are doing that same thing. Every single company is saying they're now AI agents. And obviously, someone said to me, like I was in one of the podcasts, AI is a content generation system, and Drupal is a content management system. So it's a match made in heaven. So obviously, this is what I want. We're going to rule the world. It's just going to be Drupal. The fact that we're open source means that we can beat people like Palantir with their however billion valuation. So do of Drupal. I don't have loads of time to go through this, but actually there's a few things we can learn from Palantir. And one of the reasons why I've been following it so closely is that at the beginning, they actually are no longer, we've heard this phrase, Christoph has mentioned a post-SaaS world. It used to be this world of monolithic SaaS things where a product that did a particular thing. But Palantir's product, no one really knows what it is. Like even in Palantir, describing what they do is so complicated. They've got this thing, Foundry and AIP, and it's sort of a no-code, low-code AI application builder now. Originally, it was a data analytics platform, but it actually just allows you to make things. And kind of Drupal is that. Drupal, you can build kind of anything, all of these products, and that's why we've been doing this do it with Drupal, of all these crazy use cases of home automation systems, I've seen farm management systems built on Drupal with no to low code. The heart of what they talk about is the concept of ontology. I studied philosophy at university. The guy in charge of it, Alex Karp, did a philosophy PhD. And so rather than from the tech, he comes from a philosophical background. And it's why I think a lot of us from philosophy connect with AI, with how it thinks, how it works a lot, from studying things like both analytical and continental philosophy. And the heart of it is this concept they call ontology. And their thing, they say, is they model, when you model your data on reality, you find magically things later down the stream just work. Because the things you want to do with it are in reality. And we've been doing this for ages in Drupal with our entities, with fields. It's one of the things I've always found so cool, again, from a philosophy background, doing information architecture, and then modeling it in Drupal, or modeling people, modeling tickets, modeling all those things and all their relationships according to how reality works. You then find your views and all the kind of reports you want later are just more likely to just work. Compared to these weird Excel spreadsheets a lot of people use where you just throw everything in. And so that's one thing, but also for AI, it becomes really powerful, because if your data structure models reality and LLMs are trained on reality, they can assume so much about your data structure by just looking at it in a way that you can't if you were to look at like a WordPress database where everything's just thrown in a single place, just random fields all over the place. You would have to have AI trawl through every single row in the WordPress database before it understands your structure. With Drupal, you just see the entity, you see the fields, you see the title, and you can assume a lot. And the same thing with Palantir. So I think we can do something there. I loved from the talk yesterday, we can automate that oil drum. One thing they do is a concept of forward deployed software engineer, and we're close. They call them echoes and deltas. Deltas work on the core software. Echoes go into the client's offices and sit with them. And they build things there. They belong almost to that client. If they see a problem, they solve it. And one thing I thought was so powerful about this, we can automate that oil drum story, is in order to know this needed to be done, he had to go there. He had to see the problems. He had to talk to them. He wasn't going to the place to automate oil drums. He didn't have a tender or brief to automate oil drums. He was just going there to solve things. And when he solved one problem, he saw another, and he had the tools to solve it immediately. And that's one thing that Palantir have, is their Foundry software gives these engineers at the beginning all the tools to quickly solve things. And we have that with Drupal. We don't always do that with our agencies. We still go through Agile, which is actually very unagile with these 2-week-long sprints, instead of just spending development cycles of 5-10 minutes. I mean, a lot of my developers at work with me do not like an expectation to have results within 5 or 10 minutes in production. But this is the thing that a forward engineer does, is they sit there with them and they get to know them. And they're not just people that solve technical problems. They are engineers. But in order to do this, you have to understand the context of the organization you're working with and their politics, because so many times you'll get engineers complaining, oh, of course they're going to do the bad thing because, management don't understand, this person's stupid, and you have all these complaints. And it's like, well, this is actually just the problem that you have to solve. there's always problems in organizations you're in. And there are some people who complain about it, and there's some people who do something about it. And the thing that is going to be powerful is if you are a space wizard, and you've got AI and all these tools, if you are good at going into the context, understanding how the internal politics works, understanding how decisions are made, how money flows, how people are motivated, what people's desires are, AI can't yet do that. It's one of the reasons why AI migration is so hard, is I thought AI migration was taking a CSV file and putting it into Drupal, but that's actually not the hard part. Most of migration is spending time in a pub or lunch with your client, because so much stuff you're trying to migrate is just in random people's heads. One of my friends had this system where they were migrating in businesses, and they noticed anything beginning with 9 ID was not there. So they asked everyone around them who was assigned to this project, is there a reason for that? And they said no. So they decided to migrate these things in. And after a while, things went weird, and the output was going strange. They didn't know why. And after speaking to the one person's boss's boss and then going down the chain again, they found someone who knew what was happening when that system was built, and apparently 9 was all fake dummy accounts. There was no documentation in the code, no documentation written down. There was nothing on the page that said that, but it was just a thing, and no one knew about it. It was just a thing somewhere in the organization. AI is going to take a long, long time before it's going to solve this problem. So I think the future of stuff in Drupal is going to be us as space wizards going in, getting to know our clients. And the thing that means that we're similar to Palantir is there are loads of systems out there sat in their massive ivory towers, even like OpenAI or Salesforce, and they're so focused on building their SaaS product. That's it. They don't go out there and actually spend time with the clients. What we do in Drupal, and this is why I like my phrase, real devs do it with Drupal, because a lot of people will mock us, but we actually are on the front lines working on those problems, working with them. We do all this stuff on the edge. We've got so many different agencies in Drupal doing all these different things with all these different verticals. And so I think it's going to be faster for us to adapt to a place where we get to know our clients. And then because of our architecture and how we've built things with our modules, our agents, MCP, all that kind of stuff, we're going to be able to be these space wizards solving things immediately. And so we're at the end now. So I talk a little bit about SaaS, which is like, there is a case where SaaS products, I think, are not long for this world in that way. There will be SaaS products, I think, especially open SaaS, but I think SaaS is going to become more and more specific and more for a particular use case because AI can now build features. And then, yeah, we're out of time, but I wanted to say, so the agents, one thing that we've been doing in Drupal is just giving you way more tools. So please, sir, I want some more tools, glorious tools. You can see that in Drupal CMS, we had these agents. Now we have so many. You can just build your own, all through a UI without a developer, if you have the tools already available to you. And we've got about 150 tools in Drupal. Sub-agent tools, so these are other agents, Drupal core actions, modifications, information tools to find things. We now can have AI agents edit content, create content. This is very powerful for tagging things, for changing certain fields after doing things that you ask it to do. You can see a list of all of the tools that are available to your agents that you can create with no code. Here's the more agent tools. Vincenzo has a talk at Atlanta about how to create your own tools. It's easier than ever. And Marcus has some ideas to make it yet even easier. We're starting to work with ECA. And so 1,000 of their tools will start joining us. And with the Modeler API, we're going to hopefully make it so that the UIs that power ECA can start powering config of content types, but also AI agents. These kind of graphs, I love the mini Kanban thing as a non-developer, but the kind of developer-y more types love these I call them graphs, sort of nodes connecting to other things. Immediately have this website where it gives you stuff about how to set up your own MCP server using Drupal. And then we've got this MCP client. And we're working on the infrastructure to make it easier and easier for you to actually try out this AI stuff with some free credits. So Amazy's the first with it, but we're going to see a whole bunch of people doing something similar, where when you try this out, you get some free API AI credits, and you can start actually playing with these tools right away. Yeah, if you're excited or scared, come and join us. Is my kids here? Hannah, are you there? Do you want to come down? No? They're not here, they're out. Okay. We're on, Project AI, on Hash AI on Slack, and yeah, I've got 5 minutes for questions, I think. Yep.
Yes, it's on. Yeah, very, very interesting talk. Yeah, we have talked already a lot on multiple stuff, but I think the world is moving so fast because, like recently, like on the recent Google event, they announced their agent-to-agent framework, which is basically, in some degree, MCP on a completely different level. But I think, how are we going to keep up with the pace? Because at this point in this room, some people did something, but yeah, we need to be sure that the momentum keeps going on. So how are we going to do that?
Yeah, I mean, so basically, like for me personally, what I did in 2023 is I was actually looking after my son as a stay-at-home dad. I got fed up with running a Drupal agency, fed up with just the pressure of it, so my business partner took over, and I just chilled out. And then the guy who I was telling you about with Palantir phoned me up, told me he can build an app, told me about ChatGPT. I got obsessed, got back into it, and I decided to basically, again, not really run anything in Freely Give and just work on nothing but AI full-time and just research, try things out. And then Marcus was essentially doing the same thing. He was working for a company doing AI stuff, had some time off between jobs and just focused on AI Interpolator. So what we did is we just spent nothing but full-time, essentially R&D with AI. And even then I can't keep up. I've got a whole reading list which I still can't do. So keeping up is tough. So what I feel like is we need to level up as a Drupal community. In the old days with how things worked in Drupal, a big way you made money, because Drupal used to be so big, if you said you were a Drupal agency, things would just go your way. Everyone wanted to be the commerce guys of commerce. So every new thing in Drupal, you would try and create the module, you try and own the namespace, and you'd be the company that does that thing. And for a while, I thought maybe Freely Give could do that for AI. We could become the AI company. We could try building up Freely Give where I hire anyone who's into AI, because we're doing loads of AI stuff. Anyone's interested in AI might come and want to work for us. What I have found is that the people who are good at both Drupal and AI, amongst other agencies, are usually the CTOs and the top developers at those agencies. And so I would have to go around poaching every single best developer and try and bring them into a single company, ours. I don't think that's going to quite work. And also, the number of stuff that you're going to have to do in AI is so big, and the competition space is so vast, that I think the only way forwards is we need to try and level up the entire community so that the way that Freely Give is an AI company, every agency, I think, needs to essentially become an AI company. I know a lot of people don't like marketing in the developer community. They find it silly how every single company has now turned themselves into an AI company. Salesforce's front page says they're an AI company, and they think that's silly, but it just isn't. I haven't got a really good argument apart from the fact that we just have to do it. And so I think we're going to be talking a lot this week with Drupal Association, trying to do something more official and see what that looks like. But one thing I want to try and do is some kind of leveling up initiative, do a mass training thing so that everyone in Drupal knows what's there. And then the hope is we as a community can do this research. Like the thing I loved about Omedia was this was one of the first big times. Like there's more than just Freely Give in the AI module. There's a few companies. But Omedia, doing the MCP module, was the first time somebody did something that I didn't ask them to or didn't know about, and they just did it, and it was valuable. In fact, Dries messaged me once, because he was playing with AI, and said, is there any way of getting Drupal to connect to these AI agents, external ones? And then I'd just seen on Slack, Georgia had posted his MCP module, and people were talking about it the day before, and I was like, well, yes, there's this thing that's there, and I could show it. And we're going to need more of that, where more and more agencies have people who are trailblazing with AI, learning about the things that we already do, and learning about what's coming, and was working on it. And so I think that's it. We just have to be stronger as a community. LangChain has 55 full-time employees, and they're one of the bigger open source ones. There's reasons, and I can talk about later, about why I think Drupal can beat LangChain, but right now they're the biggest in open source. we can get 55 full-time equivalent people working on the AI module across the community. I'm not going to be able to make it inside Freely Give. I mean, Acquia have 30 people on Experience Builder, so even Acquia alone wouldn't be able to do it. But I think the community can, so that's my answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
So thanks also for the presentation. I loved it. I loved, by the way, what you said in the end, where we need more people. And I think this is maybe a call to all the people. If you build something with AI, build on top of the AI module and share what you're doing. Even if you think it's like, oh, it's just validation in web forms, which I saw in Switzerland, but they're not sharing it. Please share the stuff. Even if you feel like, yeah, but we're not really sure, just do it. Because this way, we push everybody forward. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree. One thing we're trying to work on is that we're calling it sort of like a Drupal CMS AI playground. It's not going to be an official initiative, but I want to build something that's basically Drupal CMS, but like imagine it definitely has AI and all the AI features. And then we create like a series of recipes, a collection of recipes that sit on top of Drupal CMS, but just make it have AI everywhere. So I saw SpecB recently release an AI CK editor assistant that would take your content, search through everything it's about, search your content base of everything that you're talking about, and then provide links. So you could do better internal links for SEO. And they've produced this module, and then they're doing the thing that you have to do in Drupal, where they're marketing the module. They're talking about it on LinkedIn and trying to tell everyone about that one module. There's going to be hundreds and hundreds of things that AI can do. If you go to Workflows of AI, that's Marcus's site, he's got like 90 videos of things he's used with automators to solve so many problems that you can just do, that it's, the way that we do things with modules is just not going to be enough to discover these things. So what I'm hoping to do is take this AI playground as a place where we'll collect all of those things. So if you start publishing things, we're going to put it all in one place, and then you can then install a Drupal CMS plus AI playground, and you just immediately see everything. And it's going to be a, you know, more is more attitude. It's not about making it fine-tuned and specific. It's about just showing you everything. And that means that then it's going to be easier to discover and see what works and what doesn't. And then those things could flow back into maybe Drupal CMS or modules or things that you want to do. So my hope is not only, as Frederick said, start throwing it out on Drupal.org, but then what I'm wanting to do is also collect it so that people can see all of those things together. And find ways of telling people about what your organizations are doing as well. So, yeah, it's 10. Do we stop? Yep. I'm going to be around if you want to talk about AI with me at any point. Is Hannah there still? I thought I saw them come along, but no, it doesn't matter.